Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico.
Gotta let this track end. It's just too good. It's a long time since I heard this one. Let's drop. Hello, everyone. This is Rolo, the Puerto Rican pistolero, coming to you live from beautiful South Florida. It has been it has been an extremely long time since I have done a Rolo's Rants. This is the first Rolo's Rants episode on the Rolo's Rants YouTube channel. It is a pleasure to see you all here. We got 7 people watching. That is more than I thought because it was an impromptu stream. It's on the new channel. We're just getting started here. So thank you all for joining me. It's been a really long time. If you know, I guess we'll start with the intro. There's a lot of things to talk about. So many things are changing by literally the second here, as they have been for the last 2 weeks or so, or really week and a half. Or if we really want to say since the debate, it's just been non-stop. Greg the Goblin is in there. We got Ad Victoriam, of course, the lovely Carla, mod extraordinaire, who, if you guys haven't gotten the rants, she's definitely heard some of them. And she's actually an extremely good ranter, by the way, as well. So it's been a while. It's been a while since we've talked about a lot of things. I kind of took a break for a bit. As you guys know, I've been through a journey in the last year or so. And a big part of that journey has been, becoming, really growing my relationship with God and with Christ, becoming a Christian. I was baptized about a month ago, a little bit over a month ago now. And I've kind of been taking time, getting in tune with my faith, kind of figuring out what I want to do, and kind of realizing that my attitude on a lot of things has changed. So maybe the rants are a little bit different than they used to. So I wasn't sure if I was going to come back to the rants, but with everything that has been going on since the presidential debate a few weeks ago, it's been slowly building up inside of me. Like you can tell, if you're the old man, if you've been hearing some of the streams, thank you, Ed Victorian, for the congrats. It's been crazy. So if you've been around me, you've kind of gotten to see the rants or hear the rants kind of in person. So it's almost like I rant every day. It's just not something that I've been live streaming. So between the old man and the mod extraordinaire, they've both been kind of hounding me like, hey, you're basically ranting all the time. You should just go back and do it, right? So that is why I am here. I decided that after I didn't do it at my normal time. I'm not sure what the rant schedule will be or how often I'm going to do it, because I'm still kind of deciding how I'm going to do this going forward and how I feel it coming out of me. But everything that's happened the last few weeks, yeah, there you go. Carla can confirm. The rants are crazy, and she's a beast too. Like, she's a political extraordinaire. So yeah, the last 3 weeks, it's just been kind of building up with all of the insanity that's been going on from Biden's horrendous debate performance, which we all saw coming. But it was pretty much, starting with that, I already knew. I was like, okay, so we know where this is going. If you guys have watched me for the last, 2.5 years now, between, my own show and other streams that I've been on and the shows that I used to do here in the past, or on the Rolo's, the Puerto Rican Pistolero channel, I should say, then you know that for at least since as long as since the 2020 election, since Biden was in the room during COVID, hiding in the basement, we knew that he was mentally incompetent. You guys have heard me saying that for years. I need to go back to the tapes and bring it up. But we've known now for years since the election, that Biden was mentally incompetent and that he could not hold the office of the presidency. So part of me has been seeing a lot of people kind of asking, well, almost kind of bringing it up, like, who's running the country right now? Because, we haven't heard from Biden here in a few days. We know that he's been incapacitated, essentially. And now they're saying that he's got COVID. Supposedly, he just made a call. See, literally before the show started, about 20 minutes before that, I believe he made a conference call to the Kamala Harris and the Kamala Now campaign. She went over to Delaware to kind of check things out. So, I think the problem that we live in with this news cycle, and it's going to be something very difficult for me to parse through on this show, especially considering the conversations that I have in private, is there is so much conspiracy going on between whether the debate was a setup in order to expose Joe Biden by the DNC itself and by the powers that be, to obviously what happened during the assassination attempt on former President Trump, to everything that has occurred in the last week since, with the palace intrigue about, is Biden going to resign? Is he not? Is Kamala going to be the nominee? Are they going to have an open primary? Basically, everything has been unknown and conspiratorial for weeks now. And I think it is kind of it's a reflection of where we've been over the last few years. I guess we can call it the COVID era, but honestly, I think that we've been in the modern conspiracy era since the Gulf of Tonkin incident, that led us into the Vietnam War. Ever since that moment, especially, it's been conspiracy after conspiracy. Like, what does the government have to do? What do they know? Actually, we can just go back even further. We can go back all the way down. If we want to go really, really far, we can go back to Roswell, New Mexico, and, UFO crashes and things like that. We can go back to the 30s when supposedly UFOs crashed in Italy. Like, we can go back extremely far in the modern era, and conspiracies have been abound. The JFK assassination obviously comes to mind, and why that wasn't released even by President Trump himself. So we have no shortage of conspiracy theories, but I don't think I've ever seen a period in history where we have more information at our fingertips, where we have more eyewitnesses, where we have more video than ever, and yet it seems like we know less than ever, or it causes us to just lose our minds and go in different directions. And part of that could be part of the process where the powers that be don't want us to know anything, or it's just an information overload. Or maybe we give these people more credit than they deserve, and they don't know what the hell they're doing either. So we'll go through some of these things. We'll parse through it. But really, we have to go to the top here. I can see Tweed Tone is here. All Thumbs is here. The old crew's coming back together. We got 14 people watching. Smash the like button. Share it out. Let people know that we're back, that we're on this channel. It's obviously not monetized yet. We're a long way there. But the pinned message, if you want to support the show, you can do it through Cash App. You can do it through Streamlabs. If you want to support through the other channel, when I do gaming streams there, that's totally fine as well, since the Puerto Rican Pistolero channel is monetized. Just for those of you that don't know, I decided to create this channel to focus solely on political and Second Amendment commentary. So we'll talk a little bit about the Second Amendment tonight, because obviously in the midst of an assassination attempt with weapons, with guns, obviously that the anti-gun far left crowd is going to make it about firearms. But let's just kind of go back a little bit here, because again, there's so much information to parse through, and it's kind of difficult to see where we're going to start. So let's go back to the debate and kind of go through the timeline of everything that happened in the last few weeks. Like I said, we've known for years now, 3.5 years, that Joe Biden was, at least, those of us that were, on, watching this stuff, I guess on the right, even though I would argue that, people obviously on the left knew that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and deteriorating day by day. But really, the pandemic allowed the Democrats to hide this, because we had Joe Biden isolated. He wasn't doing rallies. He wasn't doing anything like that. Obviously, he's an old man, so you wouldn't want him out there, during that situation. But it was very easy for the Democrat Party and his campaign to keep him isolated. And the media was privy to this as well. We know that there was a collusion here. It was a cover-up, and I think that that's kind of the biggest thing that's being exposed here. But I think we also have to be realistic about certain things, about what we're up against, and not become too cocky as, people that may be on the right, or, are supporters of former President Trump in his re-election campaign. So, because we're already seeing massive numbers when it comes to Kamala's nomination now, as far as donor dollars. So are we surprised by this as well? No, we shouldn't be. But so we know that Joe Biden came out in this debate, proved to the entire world that he was not mentally fit, and really started calling into question the narrative that the media and the Democratic Party have been pushing over the last few years. And I think really, supporters of liberty, anti-authoritarians, I think that's the way to do it, because we know that there's a lot of rhinos within the Republican Party that also don't believe in freedom, and that are part of this uniparty apparatus that we see in Washington, D.C. We know that Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, after every, session of the Senate, I'm sure that they go into, smoking rooms in the back of DC's exclusive clubs, and they're laughing at all of us for believing that there is opposition, and that there's probably only about 10 people in all of Congress, between the House and the Senate, that are actually freedom-loving constitutionalists that hold the apparatus of the state at bay and prevent it from completely taking over everything in this country and, letting us go on as if, that would basically allow us to go on without knowing anything that is occurring within the state. And I think it's crazy to have seen so many people for the first time start kind of waking up and ask questions, because I think for a lot of the normies, I think a lot of times we take for granted. Bruce, what's up? I think sometimes we take for granted just how distracted the American people are. And it's pretty easy. I've gotten into these debates with the old man before. And, and sometimes it's easy to say, it's like, well, the American people are just a bunch of morons, right? They're disengaged. Look, of course, there are people who are not engaged, who are not that bright out there, that lack common sense. The vice president is one of them. But, I think we have to realize just how much power the media apparatus has had, because we know for a fact that we were being gaslit for the last couple of weeks, because there is absolutely no way that any of us are buying that members of the media didn't know that Joe Biden was senile and that was not mentally fit to serve as president of the United States. There's no way that none of these people knew it. Maybe there are some few low-level apparatchiks that understood this within the media industrial complex, interns grabbing coffee, but even I doubt that, because that all the major hosts on these networks knew exactly what was going on, and they didn't care. We heard people literally say during the 2020 election cycle that they would vote for Joe Biden's corporeal corpse over Donald Trump. So we already knew that people knew they did not care within leadership positions within the media that Joe Biden was not going to be fit. They just needed somebody there to push through the finish line that could be a puppet. And in the midst of a Democrat field that obviously was one of the weakest in history, because Joe Biden is the one that came out on top, they had nobody. And then they took one of the first candidates to drop out of that race, Kamala Harris, and installed her as the vice president. The woman who called Joe Biden a racist live during the Democrat debates, who got absolutely destroyed by Tulsi Gabbard in the debate, which we'll watch that video again so we can remind everybody who she is and what we're dealing with. So it's absolutely absurd to think that people did not know that this was happening. Joe Biden has not been at the wheel for years. I guess the only solace that we can have is that right now, a lot of people are asking, well, if Joe Biden is not competent enough to remain in the presidential race, how can he be competent enough to remain president of the United States until the inauguration in January? He can't. But the solace that we should all have here as the American people is that for the last 3.5 years, Joe Biden wasn't running the country anyway. So we don't have any difference. Who's been running the country for the last 3.5 years? Hell if I know, but it certainly wasn't Joe Biden. That's for sure. So who was it? It wasn't Kamala, because she's sitting here laughing. She's the border czar. She'd never been to the border. She didn't do anything. So for the last 3.5 years, the United States has been run by a secret Politburo. There's your $5 word for today, ladies and gentlemen. The Politburo, which is the governing body of oligarchs, bureaucrats, leadership, whatever you want to call it, that's typically installed and runs a communist regime. So the Soviets had a Politburo, the Chinese have a Politburo, and the United States has a Politburo as well. And the Politburo has been running the Biden administration from the start, and there's no difference now. So you can all take solace that the United States will keep running just as it has been for the last 3.5 years. And if that gives you concerns, then you should be terrified, because it'll be even worse when Kamala Harris is the president of the United States, because unlike Joe Biden, who was a puppet, but still had a little bit of his own things going on there. We know that Kamala Harris has been an activist prosecutor for her entire life. We know the policies that she believes in, but we also know that she is a mental lightweight, to put it nicely. That's what she is. All she does is laugh in front of the camera. Anytime that she has serious questions, she can't answer it. She gives answers to questions that are just as bumbling and inarticulate as Joe Biden, a man who is clearly suffering from mental decline due to his advanced age and whatever else has been going on with him. Because I know plenty of people who are older than Joe Biden who have been more mentally competent, and people who are slightly younger, like President Trump, who don't seem to have any of the problems that he has. So yeah, age is a concern. Obviously, it always was, but his mental acuity was the biggest issue. And it just calls into question everything that we've seen over the last few years, which most of us were questioning, especially people that were watching this show that are within these circles who've been paying attention. If you've been on X the last few years or Twitter, then you already know what's been going on. And I think X has actually elevated itself to the top news platform at this point because of this news cycle, because it is literally every day you can say that X just breaks all the news. Every single day there is something going on new that the state-controlled media, as we'll call it now, because it's voluntarily state-controlled, right? The government doesn't have to tell them anything. They just voluntarily do it. So there wasn't a draft. There wasn't anything like that. They voluntarily cover for the states in this country. That is what the media does. Instead of being the fourth estate, the unofficial check against the government apparatus, the media apparatus here loves to cover for the government. That's what they do. You can call them left wing, you can call them whatever, authoritarian. Let's just go with authoritarianism, because more government leads to authoritarianism, and we're anti-authoritarian. Doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or a libertarian. If you do not want an authoritarian regime to take over and control your lives, that is what we're opposed to. So I don't care if they have I don't care if they're a D, I don't care if they're an R, I don't care if they're an I, or if they're an anarchist. If they're an authoritarian, then they're lying about whatever they stand for. So that is what we're against here every single day. We are for freedom. We're against authoritarianism. We're for freedom of speech, the Constitution, the Second Amendment, everything that is enshrined within that document, and the rights of the individual to choose to live their lives the way that they want without interference from the government and interference from other people. So, but as long as you're not messing with the kids, that's another thing that we get into, and you're not violating somebody else's rights, because we're the infinite freedom thing too. We know that that's a trap for a lot of people. So Cognicat, what's going on? So yeah, so we saw this for a few days now, but my greatest concern throughout all of this was that people were upset that they'd been lied to about Joe Biden, but not as upset as they should have been. The media was feeling it. You could see the heat. They started calling for Joe Biden's resignation, that they've got to do something about this. So this is what we've been seeing now for the past few weeks, these calls to action, and Joe Biden casting it off. We're not going to do it. Not a big deal. Not going to leave. I'm totally fine. I don't need to go anywhere. You know, it was a debate. It was a debate, just like Kamala used to say. So it is insane that we've been seeing all this. And yeah, you know, I had hope. I had hope for a little bit. I really did. I had hope that some people would see this and they would, you know, hey, they see what's been going on here. They see the deal with Joe Biden. They realize that they've been lied to by the media and by the Democrat Party and this administration for years now. And that all of a sudden, and for some people it did. Some people are here, thankfully. They would realize to themselves, wait a second, if they lied to us about the president of the United States and his mental state, what else could they have lied to us about these last, who knows how many years? It opens the entire can of worms. And you could see that that's exactly what was going on through in the minds of the media and certain members of the political ruling class, where they started panicking because they're like, wait a second. It's not just that we may lose this election, because that's bad enough. we may actually lose our hold on the American people and the propaganda machine that we've been building up here for decades now. And that was a serious problem, because as much as the Democrats, as the media apparatus and the state hate to lose elections, when they want to install more bureaucracy, take away more of your rights, and take more control over your money and your lives, they really hate being exposed, because that's the worst thing that can possibly happen to them, because they spend too much time getting the media on their side. They spend too much time taking over the institutions. They spend too much time empowering the executive branch and the bureaucratic state, eliminating our checks and balances, pissing on the Constitution, and lying to the American people to let it all go because they were just too greedy and they had to put Joe Biden in there and install him. No, they could not do that. They could not. They had to do something about it. It was just too much. So they had to get rid of Joe Biden. They had to. He's a liability, but they could not have the American people believe that they'd been lied to. So they had to throw him under the bus. They had to go into a circular firing squad, point the fingers at each other. Oh, the Biden administration lied to us. They were terrible. They didn't tell us about Joe Biden's mental state. They didn't let us know what was going on here the entire time. They did not let us know what was going on here the entire time. So, but we knew, we all knew, and you should have been awake to it. So what was going on here? And you know, for a little bit, I really hoped, but there was something deep inside my mind that knew. I was like, are people really angry that they've been lied to? Or are they just afraid that they've lost Joe Biden as a candidate and now they have no alternative but to vote for Trump? Because the media and the Democrat Party has spent so many years now demonizing Donald Trump, convincing us that he is a fascist from days gone past, that he's a threat to democracy and to the United States and to peace and prosperity throughout the entire world, even though it's been just the opposite, as we've seen. The world has been falling into chaos since the Trump presidency. We've been seeing throughout the entire world, you know, the war in Ukraine has been going on for more than 2 years now, with billions upon billions of dollars being poured into it. Israel was attacked by Hamas, which is something that never would have happened under the Trump administration. And it's emboldened our enemies in the Middle East. We've seen unprecedented, an unprecedented invasion through our southern border of not just, criminals from South America, but Islamic extremists, Chinese nationals, all of this. Our enemies have been flooding into the United States, people that we don't want here from the entire third world. We've seen it in Europe. Europe has essentially been taken over by the Middle East, and we've been seeing what they've been dealing with Islamic extremism there for years now. And how they've been falling slowly. You can see that every single day by that issue and their unchecked immigration. So we're insulated because we have a media that's covering everything up, and we're a massive country. So they keep throwing, shipping off anybody that they pull from the border all over the place, and then they just go and disappear, don't show up to any of their hearings or anything like that. And we have Democrat policies throughout the country that are trying to make sure that people can vote illegally, even though they're not U.S. citizens, because they know that when this all gets exposed, even immigrants to the United States, people that came here legally, that were looking for the American dream, many Latinos that have become citizens are opposed to illegal immigration. They're standing against the opioid crisis, the fentanyl epidemic, the drug war that is going on in this country, that being perpetuated by the Chinese, let's be honest, to kill the American people in a basically undeclared war that they are fighting right now, slowly getting revenge for the opium wars that took place in the 1800s, perpetuated by the UK. Back in the day and other Western countries. So, if we knew history, we would realize what's going on here, but we're not paying attention to it. And we don't care. We just keep throwing money at issues without actually going to the crux of the issue and taking it to our enemies, securing our border, and making sure that the American people are the ones that are the first priority. And I think that is the biggest thing that we've been seeing. And that is regardless of Joe Biden, because once again, we'll go back to what I said at the beginning. The United States of America for the last 3.5 years has not had a president. Joe Biden has been a figurehead, and it doesn't change now. We have had an unelected Politburo, a group of oligarchs running the United States government for 3.5 years. And who knows? The bureaucratic state has been running it for a lot longer than that, if we're being perfectly honest. And the presidency is not as powerful as we're all led to believe. Though the executive branch itself is, and the bureaucratic state that's underneath it, which was never the intention of what the founders had, but that's another story for another day. So this is what we've been seeing. We've been seeing everything come into place here for many, many years. And of course, Donald Trump becomes president and he blows that all up because honestly, part of it was probably a lack of experience and him not knowing what his boundaries are. So he came in here, tried to run things like a businessman, started trying to kick down tables. The deep state wasn't happy about it. He started exposing them for what they were doing. He didn't go after Hillary Clinton the way that he should have after the election because he was trying to be peaceful. Big mistake on his part. And then obviously the pandemic occurred and we know everything that happened with that in 2020 and the aftermath of that and how we got here today and what we're dealing with. So we've got the debate. The debate exposes Biden. The Democratic Party goes into disarray. And then barely 2 weeks later, we have the events that occurred in Pennsylvania the weekend before last. I went to, if you guys have seen my X account, I went to a Trump rally here in South Florida. It was at Trump's golf course in Doral, about 4 to 5 days before the assassination attempt. So it was all part of that sequence of rallies. And I remember thinking to myself, first of all, I thought that security, they had metal detectors, they checked everything, but the process of getting into that, the Secret Service and Homeland Security were running it, was less of a pain in the ass than it is to get into Universal Studios Orlando. A part of that bothers me. It shouldn't be less painful to get to a presidential rally than it is to get into a theme park. I don't know, maybe the theme parks have really good security, and I'm giving the government too much credit here. But that was a little bit weird to me, I'll admit. But they had metal detectors. They had a bunch of agents everywhere, guys and girls in full battle rattle, Secret Service agents in plain clothes, all that. So, okay, whatever. The way that the stage was oriented, and I've got some photos here that I'll bring up from my X account, and I actually put these messages out there because I saw some things that kind of concerned me at the time. And so you can kind of see my view here. Let's bring up the screen share here. Okay. So you can see my view here from the rally. So pretty decently far from the stage. There wasn't anything full yet. This all filled in, and the crowd went behind me as well. So it is, I could see the way that this is oriented. So the stage is actually facing Miami International Airport. So one of the things that was weird is a lot of planes fly over this exact corridor. Like literally passenger planes were flying in the direction over the stage. I know this area extremely well, so it's common. Like this is right in the flight path for the runways at Miami International Airport. So there's always planes flying over, things like that. A little bit weird if one of them were to crash there, you'd have a horrible mass casualty event. So I was a little bit concerned about that. But hey, it was Trump's golf course, so I think he probably wanted it here. Now, the way that you're looking at the stage here, behind us is the entire golf course. I think there's like 3 or 4 courses here. So huge open area, very low ground all around. Not that many trees. So pretty much a big open space of a couple square miles, I would say, behind, visible from the rally stage. You've got the clubhouse over there on the right-hand side that you can see. And so that's what you've got. Behind the stage, to the left that you can't see it, are 4 high-rise buildings, about 15, 20 stories each. They do not have line of sight to the stage, and that's why the stage was oriented the way that it was, I'm guessing, for security, because we've got the sun behind us. So it was pretty hot and miserable before Trump went up. So any of the guest speakers there, Byron Donalds, Marco Rubio was there, Maria Salazar, pretty much all the local politicians from Miami were speaking. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump spoke, and so their faces were all to the sun. So at first it was kind of like, well, that sucks for them, but I get it, because the only high ground was behind them. So had the stage been oriented differently, you'd have 4 residential buildings, which Secret Service never would have been able to secure because people live in them, condominium and apartment buildings, overlooking that stage. So you could tell that there was a conscious effort made here so that there was no high ground behind the stage. So, okay, that's cool. I see what they did there. So, and you know, all these trees that you can see, there's like 3 rows of trees that you can see behind the stage that flanks the entire perimeter of the golf course. You cannot see Trump National from any of the streets. It's like 87th Avenue, 90th Avenue. If you guys look it up, you can look up the golf course and kind of see it from Google Maps. So there's really no line of sight into it. It was actually fascinating because I'd never been in Trump's golf course, and it is pretty crazy how it's almost like a theme park. When you're in it, you wouldn't even know that you're in Miami or anything like that. You just see the tops of a few high-rise buildings. So saw that. I was like, okay, yeah, makes sense. You don't want any positions like that. But I did notice one thing that was very unusual. And in the past few days, now, I thought it was unusual at first, but then thinking to myself, I was like, okay, well, we've got law enforcement, we've got Secret Service here. Of course, I would think that they would have drones. I mean, that makes sense, right? So, you know, as I'm here, I'm a licensed drone pilot myself. I own several drones. You guys know this. So I'm keenly aware of the rules for flying a drone. There are rules in this particular area of Miami because you're in direct line of where passenger aircraft fly over, as can be seen here. And you can still see our friendly little drone over there off to the left. You're not supposed to fly drones in this area, period. Regardless of whether there was a presidential, rally going on here, this is a no-fly zone, this particular area, because only a few hundred feet up, you have passenger aircraft basically flying over every 2 minutes. So obviously, you don't want drones in this airspace because they can impact a plane, cause a crash. That would be terrible. So even under normal circumstances, you cannot fly a drone in this corridor, like within about half a mile, I would say, in either direction of where these planes are going. It's like Class B airspace, I believe. So you can't fly there, even if you get permission with your drone. Like, you can't do it because there's too many aircraft flying through there. So I thought that was unusual. Okay, yes, we got a drone, but hey, Secret Service and local law enforcement probably have it. Zoom in, you can see it. Doesn't look like anything special. Looks like a regular quadcopter, maybe a Mavic. I don't know what the government uses. I know that federal institutions are not supposed to use DJI drones, so I can't identify it accurately. It just looks like a regular quadcopter. But again, flying in an air corridor and pretty much right above here. So I couldn't snap a photo in time with the entire stage where you could see the drone, but this is pretty much just right above that view that you're seeing there. And planes would fly pretty much left of that crane, a yellow crane that you see holding up the light fixture. So I thought this was unusual. And the drone only appeared for a few minutes in between speakers, because if you've ever been to a Trump rally before, I'm not sure if they're all the same, but sometimes there's a little bit of downtime. In this particular one, President Trump was supposed to speak at 7 p.m. He did not end up speaking until 8 p.m. We saw Secret Service arrive, and we saw, the motorcade So it seemed like he was ready to go by 7 p.m. technically, but they didn't. So I don't know if there was some sort of security snafu, or maybe at that point, because it was so hot, they were waiting for the sun to go down for President Trump and give him kind of the slack here. So that all happened. But, so we got this transition period before Donald Trump Jr. went up to speak. And I noticed just before that, this drone appears, starts flying around. It was over the left portion of the crowd, the left side of the stage there. And I was just taking photos of it because I was like, this is really weird. Like, this is restricted airspace. But hey, if anybody's going to be allowed to fly here, it's probably the feds, right? So didn't think much of it until, first of all, it was only there after the last speaker finished, and then it went down just before Donald Trump Jr. started speaking. I thought that was a little bit strange, but hey, whatever. Drones can't fly for that long. Anyway, most of them 20 to 40 minutes. So I don't know. We'll just chalk it up to the feds are, the feds were doing it. Okay, cool. So maybe the feds are doing it. But then, I saw that the great representative of the state of one of the great representatives from the state of Tennessee, Tim Burchett, who's fantastic out of Knoxville. You should follow him if you don't. Posted this tweet right here. The Trump shooter had a drone, and our folks apparently didn't. Are we paying attention yet? And this is in reference to a headline from the Wall Street Journal, which says the Trump rally shooter used a drone to get aerial footage of the event site hours before the attempted assassination. So, I mean, to me, it seems fairly clear that the Secret Service was not using any drones during the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. So does the Secret Service not have any drones that they have access to? In which case, who was flying the drone that was down in Miami? Was it local law enforcement, Miami-Dade police, maybe Florida State troopers? I don't know. Who was flying it? Homeland Security? Last time I checked, the Secret Service was under, I believe, the jurisdiction of Homeland Security. So what was going on here? So I added Tim Burchett, and I sent the tweet out to him. And I said, Tim Burchett, I was at the rally in Doral, Florida, and I saw a drone flying over the crowd just before Donald Trump Jr. started speaking. I figured it was the U.S. Secret Service, but if you're saying that they don't have drones, who was it? Are you able to look into this? I've attached photos. So I just thought it was weird. We'll see if Representative Burchett responds to it. He's actually pretty good on Twitter. If you guys haven't followed him before, awesome guy. Give him a follow. Great American patriot and great congressman. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and so I thought I would throw my 2 cents in here and kind of bring this up because I was literally at a Trump rally a few days before this happened, and the more that is uncovered, the less that makes sense about all of this, especially seeing kind of the difference of the way that things were presented in Doral down here at the golf course. And I'm trying to think to myself, I was like, could this have been that because it was at Trump National, that there was a little bit more effort made, or, they obviously know the terrain better. Did local police do a better job here? Were they more involved? I don't know. So it's really difficult to say. And this takes us to obviously what the events that occurred last Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania. I've watched a lot of Trump rallies. My family always has them on. So, I'm used to seeing a lot of them, and, I'm kind of used to how, Trump does things and how he ends his speeches. So I wasn't watching this when I actually remember I was playing Ghost Recon with the mod extraordinaire. And, we were just chilling. And all of a sudden, my mom is like panicking. And then she's like, I get a, call, and she's like, hey, something happened at the Trump rally. I think he may have been shot. And I was like, no, my God, no. I was immediately like, this is it. This is going to be a disaster. This is pretty much the end, of the United States as we know it, if this is true. And so I got a TV right here in the studio, another one, not the big one that you see behind me, that's hooked up. So I turned on, Fox News and saw it. And, at first you couldn't tell what happened to President Trump, and everybody was freaking out. But then they showed him, come up with the fists and that iconic pose that we've all seen. And, thankfully they whisked him away. And that was pretty much what we saw. And I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? Especially after what I had seen, I wasn't sure, because in that initial video, if you were watching it live, you don't really know what's going on. You don't know what the orientation of the stage is, how close the shooter was, anything like that. As somebody who has above average experience with firearms, as you guys know, the first thing that I could glean was definitely a rifle. You could tell that the rounds were supersonic, just the way that they were going. If you've ever been around gunfire, especially if gunfire is coming at you from a slight distance, it can be very difficult to pick up where it's coming from, especially if you have anything that's going to bounce the sound off. So usually one of the things that I'll notice is if there's gunfire around you, and you'll notice people tend to look at where the sound is bouncing off and think that's where the gunshots are coming from. So you usually have people looking in the opposite direction of the gunfire because you'll have that sound bouncing, and then it'll keep reverberating between things. This is more of an open venue, but I'm sure it was still the case for a lot of people in the crowd. So that's the first thing that I noticed. And then you could kind of hear a counter-fire shot, maybe two. I'm not sure how many they've determined now. Today's hearing on Capitol Hill with director of the Secret Service, Cheadle, didn't really glean any more information about that. In fact, it's really given us more questions, which is, let's see what we've got here. Which is, we know that, right here we go. This is it right here. We know that there are shell casings that are unaccounted for. So that's one of the questions that people had right here. Breaking: U.S. Secret Service Chief Kim Cheadle just testified. FBI Director Wray shared with her the number of shell casings that agents found on the roof of the building from which would-be assassins shot Donald Trump. However, Cheadle refused to share that figure with lawmakers and the public. So I've got a couple of questions here because, it's extremely easy to, oh gosh, there we go. Now I'm just switching between all these different things instead of screen standby. It's very easy to become conspiratorial when you hear all these things. The problem is that, especially because I was literally at a rally a few days before, a lot of this is not adding up. And we know how professional the Secret Service is supposed to be. But the fact that I am a novice, okay? Yes, I am in firearms. I understand guns. I'm not a firearms instructor. I was never in the military. I was never a police officer. That's not my day job. It has nothing to do with firearms. I shoot firearms for fun, and I believe in freedom. And I've gotten some training. That's about it. I know plenty of friends I know plenty of people who are in the military, who have combat experience, who are firearms instructors, who understand these things. But I've been around. It's not my first rodeo. I've been around enough. So why would you not say how many shell casings there are? Why should we not know how many shots there were? What is the significance of that? Why would that be an issue? I don't understand why that's an issue. And from what we know, based on the guns that were fired that day, what would we expect? Obviously, we know that the perpetrator, who shall not be named because he doesn't deserve any recognition, we know that the perpetrator had an AR-15. All right, so we know that if he's got a regular AR-15, it's going to shoot .223 or 5.56 millimeter. Either one, doesn't matter. Basically, any AR-15 can shoot both. There's a small difference between both of those rounds, but for the most part, we're going to to, we're going to find that most AR-15s shoot those 2 rounds. So we know we're going to find 223 or 5.56, probably 223. Let's be honest. Most consumers, that's what they're going to get. So you're going to find the shell casings from the AR, and you're going to find shell casings from whatever sniper rifle the Secret Service used, and maybe the local police. I believe that the Secret Service, if I'm not mistaken, somebody can tell me this, they use an Accuracy International like derivative, and it shoots 300 Win Mag. So extremely powerful round, very powerful, extremely long range cartridge. Can be used for hunting, among other things. I guess if you have local police and they fired, maybe they would have something different than that. Maybe they'd have a 308. It's possible. I'm not really sure what local law enforcement would use. Probably 308 and above. If we're talking about a cartridge, probably 300 Win Mag as well, maybe 30-06. So, but if we're talking about Secret Service, they're going to be using 300 Win Mag. So you should find 2 types of shell casings there. You're going to find your 5.56 223 from the AR-15, and you're going to find 300 Win Mag from the sniper rifles used by the counter sniper teams. So if you don't want to tell us what the shell casings are, why not? Is there going to be some other round there that we're not familiar with that shouldn't have been there, or that doesn't match any of the firearms that were supposed to be there, that were supposedly be on, that would supposedly be on site? I mean, that's the thing here. So that's what we need to look at. Why won't you tell us exactly how many shots there were, even though, yes, in theory, we can listen to the video and count them and listen to it. But why won't you tell us that exactly? Why don't you tell us how many shots were recovered, shell casings were recovered, and just put that to rest? And I think that's the biggest thing that we're seeing here. It is that, what is it? Is it Occam's razor? Never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence. So, don't blame something on evil that can be explained by stupidity, essentially. And yeah, there's a lot of incompetence here, but at the same time, as the story gets developed, as you see other things that have gone on at other Trump rallies, that this all stinks to high heaven. And it just makes you have to question the entire narrative of, was the Secret Service this bad, or was there something more involved? And you have to start questioning it, because even a novice could go onto the lectern that President Trump was speaking from, look around and say, there's a rooftop, there's a rooftop, there's a rooftop. All right, we got to put somebody on top of all these rooftops. That's it. End of story, done. That's a basic level of security. Now you deal with metal detectors, people coming in, your regular guys with ARs and pistols that are securing the perimeter, the immediate perimeter, and you're good to go. And then you should have drones flying around constantly, in my opinion. But they didn't do this. So, this is crazy stuff. So let's look at a few videos here that kind of have an analysis. You can also watch Brandon Herrera and Grantham did their own videos, kind of dramatizing with ballistic dummies, kind of what happened here. And, because a lot of people, of course, the anti-gun crowd is like, hey, an AR-15 will blow somebody's head up, right? Like that round will do that. It'll just blow somebody's head just clean off. That's what it'll do. It'll cause such a massive amount of damage that they just won't even, they won't even exist. It'll just be a mist, a puddle of mist, or just a mist mark on the ground. So that was a fantastic video. Showed, what would have happened with Trump's ear and all this stuff, hit with a round from an AR. And pretty much they were able to replicate the damage with that. Show that it wouldn't have ripped his ear off. It would just be clean shoot through, just like what happened with him. And then they showed what would have happened to our perpetrator when getting shot by a high-powered sniper rifle in the head. So, but we've got, so I won't show that one. I can show a little bit of it, but I will show the one that I did see that kind of demonstrates, this is from 3 days ago, but this seems to be a pretty accurate representation of everything that occurred on that day. So let's bring this back here. Hopefully you guys have seen this one. If not, we'll give you the link. So
Here you can see the 3 victims that were injured by gunfire and where they were standing in the bleachers. We're going to turn around and demonstrate exactly where these bullets came from. This model represents Thomas Crooks. His position can be seen here in this image, which illustrates exactly where he was.
Now, we do have, and I'll show you a video where it appears that, you know, I know that Ad Victoriam, I believe, or Cognicat, you mentioned it in the chat now, that supposedly there was supposed to be a team here of local police on top of this roof or other agents. Supposedly the latest thing that I've heard from Josh Hawley, and I'll bring up his tweet, is that a whistleblower has told him, Josh Hawley being in Congress, that there were supposed to be agents up here or local police. They took them down because it was too hot. It was too hot that day, so they couldn't handle it. You know, these guys put their lives on the line for the president and for other high-level officials, but the heat is too much. Can't give them water, can't put an umbrella over them, apparently. But the other 2 sniper teams were fine. President Trump was fine. All the other speakers were fine. We had a crowd of thousands of people that were able to get out there. But, oh, man, God forbid that the police or Secret Service go on the roof and we can't give them some camelbacks, like, right? Or put a little tarp there, or just have them sitting there doing nothing so that that roof is not accessible. But, you know, maybe I'm just asking for a little bit too much. Anyway, let's continue.
Turning around, we can see the path of all the bullets that were fired from this location. I placed a 10-foot red disc downrange to represent what an average shooter could hit easily.
Here's another thing that I will point out. For those of you that are that aren't, you know, gun people or are novices, I know a lot of people kind of came out in the beginning and were like making fun of the shooter and saying like, oh, well, he couldn't hit anything, all this stuff. He missed by like an inch. Didn't even really miss. It was the Trump through divine intervention. I know a few of you have mentioned that in the chat, and I should have as well. Trump, by the grace of God, survived this. So this wasn't a bad shot at all. If you've ever been to the range, first of all, let's go through a concept I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, especially recently, which is minute of angle when it comes to shooting, or MOA. It's kind of a way of measuring drop angles over distances and things like that. I'm not going to get really into the technical things, but think of it this way. 1 minute of angle, it represents basically the degrees in a circle, or if you're going up and down angles, going up and down elevation. So at 100 yards, 1 MOA is roughly equivalent to 1 inch. So if we say that a firearm, a rifle, has 1 MOA accuracy, that means that at 100 yards, if we shoot a string of shots, we would expect that with a good shooter on a steady platform, that all those shots are going to land within a 1 inch radius at 100 yards. That's what that means. So at 200 yards, it would be 2 inches, 300 yards, 3 inches, et cetera, et cetera. So now the average AR-15 in the military accuracy is considered 3 to 4 MOA. So 3 to 4 inches at 100 yards. So this kid, or this dude, because he's not a kid, he's 20 years old, and I think that's something that we need to stop doing as well here in this country. I think that we've infantilized adults. If when you're 17 years old, you can join the military, and I get it. Millennials and Gen Z haven't really proven that they're adults, even into their 30s. But the fact of the matter is, you're an adult. So he was an adult. He knew what he was doing. He could have gone on to war. They would have drafted him, whatever. So sometimes I hate when we say that, like this kid, we feel bad. No, he wasn't a kid. He was an adult. He knew what he was doing. He had the age to be able to make that decision. So, we have our perpetrator here, and, if you see the string of shots, like he's shooting within that military accuracy, and the first 2 shots were basically right next to each other within a couple of inches of Donald Trump's face or head. So to say that it was a bad shot, no, these were actually extremely good shots, especially if you've ever been to the gun range. You'll see that at 100 yards, people are just shooting targets, and it's like this. That's why showing this 10-foot circle is actually not ridiculous. It's all the people, all the gun tubers, all these experienced shooters are the ones talking crap. Yes, we shoot all the time. We can shoot somewhat accurately. Most people can't. Most people can't. Go to the range and you can see that for yourself. Most people don't properly zero their weapons. Most people don't shoot off a bench. Most people don't practice. So these were actually very good shots from a novice shooter that was not necessarily experienced. This was a practicing, yes. And he was shooting under pressure because we know now, too, the supposedly police officer stuck his head up, saw him. He turned towards the police officer, brandished his weapon at him. Police officer had to go down because his hands were holding himself up. And then, the perpetrator took the shots at that moment. So that's shots under duress. First 2 shots almost hit. The rest of them were within, at that point, a string. So panic shots. Not unusual at that point. But you'll see here how close the shots were in this video. Look at this first shot fired.
Coming from our key location, bullet 1 grazes President Trump's ear. This is
that right there is like, that's pretty incredible.
The same bullet that hits a spectator in the stands. We know this through video evidence. As President Trump is talking, the first shot rings out just after he says, "Take a look at what happened."
Something that said, "Take a look at what happened."
We can see the vapor trail of a bullet strike, which is the same bullet that struck President Trump's ear a split second earlier, and this video is this location here. Back at the podium, President Trump is shot and grabs his ear, falling to the ground as more shots rang out. In total, there were 7 or 8 shots, so let's rewind and watch this at regular speed.
Take a look at what happened.
You can see there, so those first 2 shots are roughly within like a foot of one another. That's exactly what I would expect from most people shooting an AR, and that's not a bad shot. The third shot is a little bit wild, and then, as you shoot faster, you're going to be less accurate. So this makes sense. This video seems to show, it looks like 7 shots coming from that direction. We're not 100% sure. That may be about right. I think I remember when I first heard it, I thought it was 8 total with like 2 counter sniper shots is what it seemed like to me, but we don't know that for a fact.
With all that gunfire, it's easy to understand how these spectators were injured, even though they were not the target, including the sole spectator who lost his life that day.
And so obviously this is an angle that you could not
As we circle around, we can see how all the paths of the bullets were hitting in the location of this forklift machine, causing one of the hydraulic hoses to burst.
Yeah, so that's how we know the angle. And honestly, this is also how there's a lot of people talking about a water tower. The angle, look, this is accurate, and the way that forklift got hit, that kind of takes away the whole water tower angle that some people are talking about. Look, I think the fact of the matter is that this is bad enough that we don't need to come up with any crazy conspiracy theories here. The fact that we have, like I said, each and every day, something new comes out here. Something new comes out. So this is Representative Eli Crane. He posted this video. Supposedly, like we said, we got news that there was supposed to be a counter. Well, this is from Mr. Guns and Gear. Mr. Guns and Gear is an Air Force, a veteran special operator. I believe he was a PJ. He was a veteran of the War on Terror. So he has military experience. Credible guy. Mike is fantastic. One of the best gun tube channels that you can watch. But so he posted this video. Let's bring it up here. Representative Eli Crane. He was a former SEAL sniper. He was on site checking out the building in Butler, PA himself, and this is what he had to say earlier today. We'll bring this up here.
All right, guys, I'm up here on the building where the supposed sniper took his shot. It's not that steep at all. We just had a 70-year-old man back here climb up.
And there's that water tower, which is at an oblique angle from where you saw those shots are coming from. So, I'm not 100%.
Secret Service or anybody had sniper teams up there, this guy wouldn't have made it.
But they should have had
up this roof. He would have been taken out. Behind me, you see the windows that Secret Service was supposedly in the second floor of this building behind. Makes you wonder why they weren't able to quickly dispatch the individual. And then behind me, back over here where those red roofs are, that's where the stage was set up. That's where the president was giving his speech from. A lot of questions here in Butler, but we look forward to doing oversight and getting to the bottom of it and making sure it never happens again.
So as you can see, yes, basically Kim Cheadle, the first day or the day after this happened, she was like, the roof was too steep, it's a safety hazard. Bullshit. Just plain simple bullshit. We can see that that's not the case here. We've got another video here. Let's bring it up. So again, this is kind of an impromptu show today, so I didn't know how I'll keep probably at the usual 2 hours that I do, but we have a lot of other stuff to talk about too. We haven't even talked about the GOP convention. We obviously have only briefly talked a little bit about Biden's resignation, so we've got a ton of material going on. There may be more shows this week. They won't be 2 hours long. We'll see. The cycle is crazy right now, so I haven't decided how Rolo's Rants is going to continue, but today we're going to go on for at least another 45, 50 minutes here. So we'll go through a lot of these things that I've found and kind of reveal a little bit more. So this is a different angle. I think it was this was another video that Representative Eli Crane took, and now supposedly from the position inside the building that Secret Service or law enforcement were supposed to be in. Just so you can see how much of a travesty this really is. So there's the roof, and this is facing the exact angle that our perpetrator had. So this is inside the building there. So if there was somebody stationed in this building, I mean, look at what their line of sight would have been.
We're not close. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's incompetence, and then there's this. Because this, we're reaching a level of incompetence that is so egregious and so extreme that it is becoming it's becoming almost impossible. It is almost impossible to believe anything that is coming out right now. And the story seems to change every single day on this issue. It really does. Every single day, something new has been revealed. This hearing today revealed even more. It reveals a lot about the state of our government and the bureaucracy as well. The fact that Kimberly Cheadle, the head of the Secret Service, was the head was the director during one of the biggest failures, the biggest failure in the last 43 years for sure, and one of the biggest failures in Secret Service history. Obviously, Donald Trump survived, so that's a great thing. So not as bad as, what happened with Reagan technically, and obviously not what happened with JFK, but that doesn't matter because you have to call in the question of was it supposed to be like those other two? Was that the way it was supposed to be? And the problem is, since 2015, when Donald Trump came down the escalator at Trump Tower, he's been demonized. Yes. In some ways, rightfully, when he puts his foot in his mouth and he says something dumb. But most of the time, they're just making shit up, or they're exaggerating things. Or they are pulling a classic Saul Alinsky tactic, which is let's accuse our enemy of what we ourselves are doing. And everything that's happened in the last 3 weeks is the perfect example of that. Everything that they've ever accused Trump or his administration or the elements of the GOP that support Donald Trump of doing, they've done themselves. Enemies of democracy. Well, let's have a primary. Let's lie about our candidate, and we'll run a puppet candidate. Let's throw RFK off the ballot, off the Democratic ballot. We're not going to have him there. Make him run as an independent. I mean, that seems like the enemies of democracy to me, and the democratic process with which our republic is run. So, because they always love to throw that out there. And so it's interesting. It's interesting how that is. And, oh, yes, well, the deep fakes, the cheap fakes, Biden really isn't messed up. You guys are lying about that to now. Oh, yeah, of course, we knew that he was in cognitive decline. And he's an American hero for resigning, even though for the last 2 weeks, we were telling you he's got to go. It'll be for the good of the country. He's terrible for not doing it. Now today, oh, yes, he's a martyr. He's the greatest sacrifice in American political history. Oh, what an honorable man, Joe Biden. Oh, he's not running. He's not running anymore. It's amazing. Yet, he's still the president of the United States. How the F is that possible? How the F is that possible right now? That is what we are dealing with here. So, yes, either the biggest failure, the biggest measure of incompetence, which honestly points to the deterioration, the collapse of the United States, which we've been seeing, the decline in our institutions, intentional and both unintentional, and everything that we've seen around the world. But at the same time, it reaches a level, we're dealing with adults here. And when children or novices can come up with better plans than adults when they have no special knowledge, it really, really makes you question, like, can people that have any semblance of knowing what they're doing, because these are professionals here. I mean, we saw the Secret Service agents that were immediately around Trump, most of them anyway, do their job, and they perform their job admirably. Now, we've got some questions to ask about some of the, and not to be sexist, the women that were supposedly on this detail. I know some of them were supposedly not even Secret Service. So what is the Secret Service pulling agents who are probably not trained in security and bodyguard details and bringing them over here, let alone agents that appear like they haven't gone to a gun range and gotten qualified in years, nor do they appear to be in shape. And, also, look, logic is going to dictate that Donald Trump is a huge guy. You need some big bodies to defend Donald Trump. He's a big dude. He's like a tight end. What is he, like 6'4", 6'2", 6'4", 230, 250 pounds. He's a beast of a man. He's a huge dude. And you've got women that look like they barely weigh 110 pounds and are like 5'2", trying to use their bodies to protect them. I mean, look, God bless them, but it just ain't going to happen. And I think you saw the immediate difference at the GOP convention when he had 15 huge dudes all around him the entire time. I think that tells you everything that you need to know. That, yes, they know we done effed up. We done effed up. That's exactly what they would tell you. So that right there, 6'3", 215. There you go. Yes, 6'3", 215. Forgotten man. Oh, great. So he's a beastly guy. He's a big dude. You can't have small people, even small men, defending this guy. It's just not logical. If I had a smaller person, totally fine, but you don't. So you got to put some big dude. You got to have some big bodies around this guy. And you saw how strong he was when he came back up, and he wanted to reassure the crowd. And honestly, let's go back to that, because we haven't, we spent a lot of time today talking about the events that happened, but we have not talked about, former President Trump, the resilience and the leadership and the pure badassitude he showed that day. And I think that's another problem that we have here. Let's go to that controversy as well. The fact that you have what is arguably the iconic photo of this century. I think we can say that at least of this century in American history, after September 11th, and obviously the events that occurred there, this is probably one of the most iconic photos in modern American history. Definitely in modern presidential history. Of Donald Trump, that moment when you saw him go down and nobody was sure, because we saw some blood. We knew that there were multiple gunshots. We saw him dive down onto the stage. There were those few seconds when we didn't know what was going on. And the fact that gunshots just kept ringing out. He gets back up, and his first instinct is to raise his fist, look to the crowd and say, fight, fight, fight. That is something that I'm a grown man. You know, I am going to be 40 years old in a shorter time than it was that I was 30 years old. I can be pretty stoic about a lot of things. I was emotional seeing that. I had tears welling up in my eyes when I saw President Trump get up and do that. Not only because I knew that, a leader that I had voted for, somebody that I wanted to win, obviously, and somebody who I had some skin in the game with, survived. But I saw a man show true. That was masculinity. That was leadership. That was power right there, and courage. And the instinct and the wherewithal to not only know that he was shot and go down and protect himself, but to show that leadership, that he knew that he needed to show the American people in the crowd that he would not go down, that he had an indomitable spirit. And I think that was huge. And I think at that moment, it changed the perspective of Donald Trump in a lot of people's eyes, especially to leaders abroad. Because now, by all accounts, when President Trump was dealing with some of our adversaries, when he was there talking to Putin, to Xi Jinping, to Kim Jong-un, to all these people, they already thought he was a little bit crazy and unpredictable, and they were already accepting that he was tough. Imagine now across the negotiating table with Donald Trump and these world leaders. Dude's literally been shot. He has been shot. And then he gets up and he does that. It makes Putin's shirtless photo on horseback look like child's play. That's really what it does. That Trump can now do this and he can show it. And that is the power of images and photography and iconography. It really is. That Donald Trump can now go there. This image will go down in history. And any time that somebody sits across the table with Donald Trump, they will have that image in their head. And they'll be like, this is a man that I cannot trifle with. This is a man who's going to play hardball that I really can't F around with. So that is what a lot of people will see. And yes, it is a shame that the mainstream media, that Time Magazine, that a lot of people are trying to hide this image now because they know that it elevates his position from a man that was running for president to legendary status. And honestly, it was my hope too, seeing President Trump at the GOP when he made his entrance there. You could feel it. You could see that this was a man that was humbled. He was a man that was humbled. And I'd like to believe that, I believe, I'm openly Christian. You guys know this. So I believe that was divine intervention that occurred that day on behalf of President Trump. What is the purpose? I don't know. I know that we live in a fallen world that is fallen. It falls a little bit more each day. We have great forces of evil. I would even say demonic forces that want to sacrifice children. We've seen this with Epstein. We see it with the entire trans movement. We have evil forces on the march throughout the world that want to destroy, Israel, Christianity, these kinds of things, the Western culture, Judeo-Christian society, all of this. So we're dealing with some pretty bad stuff throughout the world. I believe that there's a spiritual war that is going on in this world on top of the human conflict that we're seeing. A lot of people may not believe that, but I think when you start digging deep and you're like, what's the logic between these people? Because you're seeing so many disparate groups kind of uniting against each other. It's like there's no way that the Islamic invasion will allow the globalists to take over these countries, or that they'll be able to control the Islamic invasion. So you might be able to convince Europeans and some liberal Americans to give up all their stuff. I don't think that's going to happen with the people coming from the Middle East. So I think that there's something, there's some sort of dichotomy there that's not going through with the globalists if they think that that's going to work out for them. But there's a lot of stuff going on. There's no doubt that there are forces being involved, different groups throughout the world that have plans that are not great, that are essentially evil. They want to take away our rights. They want to take away our freedom. They're using it under the guise of different policies, whether it's some sort of one world government, global warming, whatever agenda that you want to do, an agenda of control. Is it the Chinese Communist Party trying to spread authoritarianism throughout the world? I don't know. It could be a lot of those things. So it's crazy what we're seeing here. And the more that you get into it, the more you're like, well, this isn't like a logical force that's necessarily involved here. But again, you know, that's just what I'm thinking here. It's just, there's way too much involved. Now, whether you believe that or not, it's fine. But I think we can all agree that there are definitely forces here that would like to see Donald Trump in the United States fail. The United States as we know it, because we're standing in the way of something else. So this is what we're seeing here. And we've seen throughout history when nations rise to the level of the United States and reach that level of decadence where we no longer care about the values of our countries. We're at the bread and circuses phase, essentially, of where the Roman Empire was, or really the Roman Republic, because we know that Rome fell as a republic first and then became an empire later. And then eventually the empire started crumbling and deteriorating under the weight of its own decadence and bureaucracy as the years came by. So this is where we're at. If anything, we're reverting to the mean here. Whereas throughout history, for thousands of years, humans were always ruled by a small elite, the 1%, the aristocracy, the ruling class, whatever you want to call them. You know, the communists would call it the proletariat. You know, whatever you want to call this. A very small number of people controlling the vast majority of the power. Oh my gosh, it sounds like left-wing propaganda, but it's true. Now, after the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, the spread of you know, Christian principles throughout the world and morality, the individualism, the rise of individual rights, and the growth of a middle class, we've been able to rise beyond that. And now we have a middle class of people that are upwardly mobile. We can do things that the elites used to only dream of doing. We can travel the world. We can save our money. We can own homes. We can own cars. We have luxuries that we've never had. Well, that's not cool. They don't want to share that stuff, in my opinion. So that's the problem. So for years, they realized, you know what? We don't want to share these resources with all the peons. We don't want to do that. So now we're reverting to the mean. That's where we're going. We're going back to the way things were, where they're destroying the middle class. They're pushing us against each other. They want us to all be peons. We're on the road to serfdom. Great book, by the way, that everyone should check out if you haven't. So that's where we're going. We're reverting back to the mean because they do not want to share their resources. They don't want people educated. They want to control everything. And an educated populace that has money, that can get themselves different resources, that has faith in a higher power than the state, that is very difficult to control. This is also why they're destroying the bonds between men and women, the battle of the sexes, because you cannot have a family unit. There's no bond more powerful than that between a man and a woman and the children that they conceive together and that they grow together, especially if they have faith in a higher power, because now they know that the state is a lie. They know that there is an authority above the state, and they know that there is an authority within their own home that is above the state, and that is parents and their children, and you can't have that. So you have to get in between men and women. Men and women must hate each other. Men and women must not get married. In fact, we're going to make a mockery of marriage and the institution that it is. We're going to confuse people and tell them that they can be men or women. You know, that they can choose whatever they want to be, and that we have to acknowledge everyone by their pronouns. We're seeing children being transitioned and sterilized and mutilated. We're seeing laws get passed where parents can't find this out. This is all part of the plan to destroy any sort of resistance that goes against any of this. You create a society where men and women hate each other, where there is no religion and a higher power than the state, and where children mutilate themselves and then become medically dependent on the state itself or pharmaceutical companies. And now they're done. That's it. And now you have full control over the society. And that's what's been going on here for many years, I would say. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, obviously we got to pray. That's one thing that I would advise everyone to do if you believe in God. If not, we've got to continue to do what we've been doing. And that is, at this point, the jig is up. The curtain has fallen. We can see the man behind the curtain. The Wizard of Oz is, in fact, a man on a loudspeaker. We know the truth now that we've been lied to. So what do? We got to wake people up. We can't let them fall for the lie again. It is not good enough that people refused to vote for Joe Biden because they felt that he was senile. We need to make sure that they do not vote for Kamala Harris or any mouthpiece that the Democrat Party puts up, because ultimately this was not about Joe Biden. Joe Biden was not running the United States of America for the last 3.5 years. The Democrat Party and the Politburo that was installed under the guise of the Biden administration has been running the country for the last 3.5 years. So there is no separation between Democrat policies and anybody that they put up there. None. Joe Biden did not come up with the policies that have destroyed this country for the last 3 years. It was the Democrat Party. It was the administration in power that just happened to have his name attached to it. But make no mistake, the Democrats and the left in this country own the last 3.5 years because Joe Biden was not in charge of the country. He was not. He was not. So we cannot allow them to get away with that. Every time they try to argue with it, you need to tell people who was running the country the last 3.5 years. Make them answer that question. Was it Joe Biden? You just saw that they got rid of Joe Biden. Did you think Joe Biden needed to go? Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, he was mentally unfit. So who the hell was running the country the last 3.5 years? And are you okay with it? So who was running it, huh? Who was running the country? Was it Kamala? Doesn't seem like she was. Was it Joe Biden? Did we have a Woodrow Wilson type of presidency now where the wife was running everything like that happened back in the day with him? I don't know. But these are questions that we need to get to the bottom of. And that's why what the Republican Party needs to do now is that it is not good enough to allow Joe Biden to bow off and ride into the sunset. Hell no, we cannot do that. It is up to the Republican Party now to put pressure on this administration and to start putting pressure on them to invoke the 25th Amendment. And if they don't, there need to be hearings. And we need to ask members of the administration, when did you know that Joe Biden was not mentally fit to serve in office? Because we have to put all these people on the record right now and expose the lie that they were telling within the administration. The lies that they told the media, the lies that they told other politicians, the lies that they told the American people, because there was clearly within the Oval Office a conspiracy to hide how bad Joe Biden was. So we have to expose that. So his administration and Kamala Harris have to be put under scrutiny. And we need to ask them, why have you not invoked the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office? And that's what we need to do. There need to be hearings in Congress to put them on the record so that we take down the entire administration as this point. That's what has to go, because Kamala Harris cannot be president. First of all, we know her policies, we know her incompetence, and we know how terrible it is. And we don't want to hear that cackle for the next 4 years while she burns the country down even more than Joe Biden has and continues that. No, we don't want any of that. So we have to get the entire administration and that inner circle on the record as to what did you know and when did you know it, and force their hand to invoke the 25th Amendment and get rid of this, And yeah, that means Kamala is going to be our president for at least a short period of time. But we've got to get to behind this. We have to take away the credibility of the administration that is in place now, expose them, and then expose the policies so that it doesn't matter who they put there, they will lose because of what they stand for. And I think that's what we need to do. Absolutely. Now, we don't know if, what the deal is with Joe Biden, what's been going on. We have not heard from him since the letter. Mod Extraordinaire, thank you for dropping this link for me. Carla, she just sent me this video.
On the call.
So we'll bring this one up.
Our president's voice. Our president's voice. Joe, I know you're still on. Joe, I know you're still on the call.
Let's bring this up here. Wow, man, there's just some. Okay, here we go. Here's Kamala here. And we'll bring this up here for you all.
Joe, I know you're still on the call. Our president's voice. Joe, I know you're still on the call.
Oh, that's what you put in there.
President's voice.
On the call. Yes, I can see that. Wow. Good catch there. Slipped that was a recording, not a call. Interesting. Very, very interesting. That is interesting. So, hey, I mean, this calls into even more a question, right? That is crazy. I did not see that part. I'd heard that there was a call, but I did not hear that she had a Freudian slip. Good catch there. So, very, very interesting. That right there. So, but we can already see where everything is going on right here with the setup. With the setup. And be prepared to hear more of this. Kamala's
By what has
signature.
Been. What can be.
Signature
Unburdened by what has been. What can be. Unburdened by what has been. What can be. Unburdened by what has been. What we can see, what we believe can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been.
It's interesting how every time that she says this phrase, she puts up her right hand and then moves it down low to the what has been part. She does that every time.
What can be, unburdened by what has been. Who we can be, unburdened by who we have been. What can be, unburdened by what has been.
Yeah, so this is her signature line. It kind of weird. I don't know what the deal is with that, but that's what Kamala says all the time. Some people say that this has to do with the occult, but I have no idea about any of that. I just thought it was an annoying line that she gives all the time. But yeah, this is what we have to look forward to, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we have to look forward to. We also saw, okay, so this is what we got from Josh Hawley earlier, the letter that we got from whistleblowers talking about what was going on in the roof. Sorry, I know this has literally been breaking news up to the minute that I started the show, so I've got so many things that I keep putting up here and that I've seen. And so this is the letter that Josh Hawley from the great state of the senator from Missouri wrote here. So let's see. Okay, so since my last correspondence to you on July 19th, this is to Secretary Mayorkas of the Department of Homeland Security. Josh Hawley's tweet says, whistleblowers tell me law enforcement personnel were in fact stationed on the roof the day of the Trump rally, but abandoned it, citing the heat. They also say law enforcement were supposed to be patrolling the building, but opted to stay inside. Holy cow. What the heck? Yes, we can be unburdened by what has been. Yeah, supposedly that's like a saying that the communists have said for a long time. I'm not sure. Maybe that's reading a little bit too much, but it's definitely a Kamala-ism. So if you hear it and you see her little hand wave, like, you know, that's like her thing. Contrary to Director Cheadle's public statements about the safety of the sloped roof of American Glass Research Building number 6, one whistleblower with direct knowledge of Secret Service planning for the event alleges that there was supposed to be a law enforcement presence on the roof that day. In fact, the whistleblower alleges that at least one individual was specifically assigned to the roof for the duration of the rally, but this person abandoned his or her post due to the hot weather. The whistleblower further alleges that concerns over the heat prompted law enforcement to forego patrolling Building 6 and instead to station personnel inside the building. Additionally, I've heard from a DHS official that Homeland Security Investigations has nearly completed a report on its personnel involvement in providing security for the July 13th rally. Please furnish a copy of this report to my office immediately. To inform ongoing investigations, please respond to the following questions by no later than July 26, 2024. 1, if the whistleblower's allegations are accurate, when did the individual abandon the post? 2, which law enforcement units were assigned to the roof? Please provide all security plans indicating which units were assigned to the roof in the building. 3, did any law enforcement personnel fail to report their assigned stations that day? I await your response. There you go. So that is from Josh Hawley, and that is more information that we have gleaned since then. We also have, let's see, we got the videos that we showed. So that's pretty much where we're at with the investigation right now. Obviously, Kim Cheadle was on Capitol Hill. We'll get way more from that hearing today, and we'll find out. I mean, will we ever get to the bottom of this? I don't know. I really don't know. And this is where we're at. But it seems like we get a little bit more each day. It's barely been a week since this happened. So we'll see what happens, going forward. Now, let's go back to Kamala, and let's talk about the moment that took her down when she was initially running for office for the presidency during the 2016 election cycle. So if you all know this famous video of Tulsi Gabbard taking down Kamala, and this is pretty much when her presidential run failed.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris.
I want to bring the conversation back to...
So, that was the 20... I guess it would have taken place in 2019, but the 2020 debates. So... that's pretty much the moment that she was taken down. Tulsi took her out. That was great. We need Tulsi. I think again, I would like Tulsi in the Trump administration. Not sure what we'd bring her in for. SecDef is a pretty high up position, so I don't know if Tulsi could do that. She was a major. She's pretty anti-war, so maybe she'd be a good pick for that. And I think we got to give, while we're going on this, we got to give credit to our boy, the best one. Veteran Affairs, she could be in charge of the VA. Yeah, I think that'd be fair. But I think we need to. Oh yeah, here's another interesting thing. I just throw this up here. We won't really talk about it. But this was interesting that happened because we also had that big CrowdStrike
Hillary Clinton paid for
outage,
it,
didn't
Democrats.
we? Didn't we have that big CrowdStrike outage? See, there's just so many things to talk about that it is overwhelming to go over everything that has happened in the last 3 weeks. We had the debate, the implosion of the Biden administration, the attempt on Donald Trump's life. We had the GOP convention and JD Vance chosen as the VP. We have all this going on. We had the CrowdStrike outage that took place on Friday, which seemed very coincidental, that the day after we find out that the shooter had encrypted accounts, that now a huge cybersecurity firm just happens to go down, and it's the same firm that happened to have done this that President Trump warned us about years ago. It's crazy, huh?
Hillary Clinton paid for it, and the Democrats. A lot of it had to do, they say, with Ukraine.
But Mr. President,
it's very interesting. It's very interesting. They have the server, right, from the DNC, Democratic National Committee.
Who has the server?
Now, The FBI went in and they told him, "Get out of here! We're not giving it to you." They gave the server to CrowdStrike or whatever it's called, which is a company owned by a very wealthy Ukrainian. And I still want to see that server. The FBI has never gotten that server. That's a big part of this whole thing. Why did they give it to a Ukrainian company?
Are you sure they did that? Are you sure they gave it to Ukraine?
Well, that's what the word is, and that's what I asked actually in my phone call, if you know.
Right.
I mean, I asked it very point blank because we're looking for corruption. There's tremendous corruption. We're looking for, why should we be giving hundreds of millions of dollars to countries when there's this kind of corruption?
This was all before the Ukraine war. Holy cow. Holy cow, everybody. Holy cow. It's like the former president was impeached because he found out something that he was not supposed to. Very interesting. Very interesting. But we're not supposed to be conspiratorial. Not at all. We can't be conspiratorial here. We only deal with facts. We only deal with facts. Doesn't matter that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma, a board of directors for Burisma, one of the top energy companies in Ukraine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the corruption. Doesn't matter that Ukraine went through a color revolution in which their candidate, which was aligned more with Russia, was supposedly lost in a CIA plot or anything like that. Nope. You can't ask about that. DNC servers over in Ukraine. Nope. Can't talk about that. It's can't do it. Can't do it. It's all too much of a coincidence. Don't pay attention here. It's not a big deal. It's just Donald Trump, quid pro quo. We'll impeach him, and that's it. And then we'll get rid of this, right? We will get rid of this. So, I mean, I don't even need to speculate. I don't need to do anything. You just play all the clips, the truth, let the video speak for itself, and read where things came from, or read what has happened. And if you have anybody that has an open mind, doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on or what they may have believed, pretty much everybody sees this and it's pretty compelling. I think most normal people, if they have access to this information, which they should, everybody does, they would be like, you know what? This all looks pretty bad. This looks pretty conspiratorial. And it does make you call into question, we had the Hunter Biden laptop, all that stuff. I mean, there are certain things you can't talk about on YouTube because they'll try to ban you, but you guys know what I'm talking about. There was a certain event that took place in 2020 that was pretty fishy. Maybe it's even fishier now. Maybe more people will be willing to believe that maybe that was an entire shit show and that certain things happened a certain way. But we're not supposed to talk about that. We're not supposed to call out the media. If you question the narrative, you're called a conspiracy theorist or a racist or a sexist or whatever they want to throw at you. If you didn't like Obama, you're a racist. If you don't like Kamala, you're a racist. You hated old people, or you're a terrible person. You believed in deep fakes and cheap fakes. All this stuff doesn't matter. You're a bad guy from World War II. You're a fascist. It's all there if you question the narrative. So now we're starting to see more and more that there are inconsistencies. They've been going back for many years, and you have to start questioning everything. And it sucks. It sucks. It really does, because like I said the other day, I don't want to be right. I don't want to be right about any of this stuff. I never wanted to be right about any of this stuff. It doesn't feel good. I would rather be called some crazy dude holding the cardboard sign on the side of the road saying the end is nigh and be wrong than to be right about any of this stuff, because this is terrible. This is worse than any movie that we could have come up with. That's what we're dealing with here, because we're dealing with a combination of conspiracies, stupidity, and evil. It is just a horrible mix of, greed, stupidity, conspiracies, evil, all this stuff. All bad things for the United States is what we're dealing with here. It's all bad. It's this grab bag of terrible crap. And they just don't let it go. They don't let it go. They keep beating us down with it, and they keep trying to gaslight us. And again, My biggest concern is that people aren't convinced that the policies were bad. They were just convinced, well, Joe Biden was just too old to be president. So as long as we get rid of him, we're back. We're good. Like, we'll vote for the Democrats again. Like, doesn't matter what we saw from Donald Trump or the GOP at the convention, or that so many people seemed open-minded, like, oh man, Donald Trump looks like a hero. Because the fact of the matter is, as sad as it is, despite everything that we've gone through and that we've seen the last few days, somehow in the last day, the Harris administration was able to get $81 million from donors, which is supposedly the highest amount of donations in one day in any presidential campaign in history, even more than a week ago when the Trump campaign made $70 million or $75 million in a day after the assassination attempt on Trump. Funny that it was $81 million. Just kind of like there was 81 million votes for Joe Biden, supposedly. I don't know. That's kind of weird. But I don't know. That number's kind of weird to me. And so, supposedly from all these grassroots donors, like 888,000 grassroots small donors supposedly gave this up. I mean, I don't know. Was it really? Or was it that all the Democrat donors were withholding their money for like the last more than a month, and then they all dumped it in one shot to boost her numbers and to say that's like the most successful campaign day in history? I don't know. But it does show that despite everything that is going on, despite the fact that they've gone after Donald Trump, that he was almost assassinated, that everybody saw it, that he gave one of his best speeches ever at the GOP convention, and that it seemed like it moved a lot of other people on the other side of the aisle, doesn't matter, because look at the machine they've got. The media will turn in an instant and forget that for 2 weeks they were covering up their lies, that they were telling Joe Biden to leave. Today, Joe Biden is a martyr. He's a political hero. In 2 days, if he doesn't leave the presidency entirely, they'll demonize him again and say that he's preventing Kamala from getting her executive experience and taking the leadership, and that's a national security issue and all this stuff. Watch it all go down. Watch this all go down. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few days they're accusing Trump of getting rid of his own Secret Service detail and saying that, oh yeah, we warned Trump that there was a threat, but he still wanted to go on stage. That, mark my words, that could be the next one. They'll start the victim blaming at this point. I mean, they essentially kind of already have, right? They're like, well, he kind of deserved it. That's what a lot of people on the internet are saying. You've got all these people making threats saying that they're happy about what happened, violent, disgusting people losing their jobs, which I'm totally okay with, because this isn't cancel culture. I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, these are normal. No, these are the same people that wanted you to lose your job if you didn't get the jab. They call you racist for voting for Trump. They think you should be thrown in the gulags. I'm sorry. Like, if you make threats against the president, you're going to lose your job. That's just the way it is. Don't do it. It's pretty stupid. I wish no ill will with Joe Biden. Joe Biden just needs to retire and be with his family and enjoy, the last few days that he's got, because the poor man, like, let's be honest, he's not there. He's not there. I pity the fool. I really do. I pity the fool, because that man is not there. And what they've done to him as somebody who has seen older people that I've cared about deteriorate, and somebody that knows people who have gone through what Joe Biden is supposedly going through, really, not just seeing somebody get older and go through the normal process of seeing somebody who may have Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that, how difficult that can be. It is wrong that they did this to Joe Biden. It really is. We may disagree with him politically. We may hate his policies, but this is pretty much a travesty what was done here in front of the American people on every level. The lies, the lack of dignity here. It just shows you the type of people that we're dealing with. They do not think the way that we do. They do not do things the way that we do. Their tactics are immoral, and they will do anything they can to win, and they want to win more than we do. They will sell their own mothers for their political wins. That is what the state, the authoritarian, bureaucratic state will do. And that goes for both Democrats and the Republicans, because we know that there's plenty of Republicans that were not happy that Donald Trump is back, and that he chose J.D. Vance as his running mate too. Let's be honest. They didn't like that either. There is so much more to say about everything that's gone on, talking about the GOP convention. I thought it was a good convention. I thought a lot of the speeches were fantastic. Wasn't a huge fan of the opening with kind of the whole Sikh prayer and all that stuff. I thought that was a little bit weird, but I get it. I do have some fears over the Republican Party in the long term becoming too much of a big tent party. I get it. You know, we will have to bring more people, more moderates, and different people underneath the fold. My concern is, in 15 or 20 years, will the Republican Party be where the Democrats are? Because the Democrats started supporting every single demographic group and groups that have nothing to do with one another. You can tell they've got, like, how can you bring in the pro-Palestinian crowd and the LGBTQ crowd? Never made sense. They should totally be enemies with one another. They really should, you know? So that doesn't make sense. So I do have a concern that in the future, the Republican Party will become too big tent. You have to have certain standards. You really do, with your platform. So I am concerned about that in the long term. I think that when you've got guys like Vivek coming down the pike, hopefully JD Vance is good too. I still like Vivek more. I think JD is a solid choice. I'll have to do a little bit more research. I'll be honest. When it comes to JD, I was sleeping at the wheel with that one. Cause I liked Vivek more. Where I will say the interesting thing about JD Vance, and something that I have in common with that probably a lot of people may or may not know, but I have mentioned it in the past, is that I too did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I definitely didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, but I thought that Trump was not a Republican, and he really isn't. And he definitely wasn't a conservative, really. And so I always thought, I was like, I've seen Trump with all these celebrities. I've seen him with the Clintons before. I was like, I really don't trust him. I mean, I thought he was a Trojan horse, to be honest. So, you know, that's pretty much what I thought of him. So I didn't vote for him because I was like, this guy's just going to be a Democrat in Republican clothing, and he's going to stab us in the back. Then he started governing, and he's probably one of the best presidents I've seen in my lifetime, and has governed more conservatively than any of the other GOP candidates, you know, going back in my lifetime. So what, up to Bush Senior, I guess, even though I wouldn't have remembered that. I was like an infant, and I definitely didn't remember Reagan because I could barely walk when that was going down. So, you know, I've seen good things from him, and his track record proved it, and that's why I voted for him in 2020, because he was able to prove it to me. So I kind of like that about JD Vance, where he's got kind of that similar background, where he was very skeptical about him at first, and then you know, grew you know, saw his policies and said, hey, that's cool. And I think it does say something about Trump, because I think, look, we have to give Trump his critiques, right? Typically Trump likes it when people are sick of fans, you know, when they suck up to him. That's kind of how he's always been. So when you know, give him compliments or you're nice to him and things like that, Trump is going to reciprocate that with you. So I thought it was a good thing that he chose somebody that originally didn't like him and that said some of these, you know, some of these things about him, because typically Trump holds grudges. So I think that that's great. And obviously Donald Trump Jr. and Tucker Carlson had a huge amount of influence with that, I heard. And the few things I've heard from JD when he speaks, he's very articulate, seems to know his stuff. He's good friends with Vivek. They went to college together, used to watch games and get drinks together. You know, that's a good sign. Vivek is my dude. You guys know that. Vivek is the guy that, if I could choose somebody to be president right now, I would choose Vivek. I would. I know a lot of people don't trust him. A lot of people don't trust college graduates, especially if you went to graduate school, to an Ivy League school. I don't think that you should judge somebody that way, because you get in through prestige. And I've got a college education. I didn't fall for any of the progressive left-wing BS that they were teaching. You know, you just kind of go in, do your thing, and you get out. And that's the way that it is. So, you know, I don't hold that against him or anybody else if your principles and your voting record kind of speak with it. So, and that's kind of how it is. That's a good point. Ed Victorium says in the chat, funny thing is that JD grew up a working class, but was institutionalized by elite institutions like Yale, while Trump grew up a millionaire but was institutionalized in construction settings. It is. It is. And I think that's why Trump has always appealed with blue collar workers and union guys, because he's been around, construction sites, all of that. He's very much got that New York mentality. He's almost like a bit of a mafioso in a way, but people like that, the tough guy attitude. And that's kind of, he conducts himself. And people like that. And I feel like that's what we need right now, especially with the forces that we're dealing with. We got some bad hombres coming across the border. We got some bad hombres leading our adversaries. And we got some bad hombres within the government trying to undermine stuff. So we're going to need a tough hombre to handle this business. So, that's the way it is. So, I would say that you, pay attention to what's going on. I would love to see Vivek become the next senator of Ohio and make sure that he's in. I think that he'd be really great as some sort of czar. We love that term, don't we? Some czar within the Trump administration. Maybe the deep state dismantelization czar. More like the government. I don't know. Maybe the bureaucracy reduction czar. Go ahead and send him out there to audit the federal government. And I think Trump has to know he's got 4 years. He's only got 4 years. So you got to tee things up for Vance or whoever the next conservative president will be. And push those Make America Great Again policies, try to set everything up. I think Trump should focus on auditing the federal government and kind of exposing, corruption within the feds, where the waste and spending is. And I think that one of the things that was powerful that gained Trump some popularity during his administration was when he did those daily briefings when the pandemic started. The media hated it because basically Trump was getting PR every day and doing these press briefings, but it did help his poll numbers for a while. So I think that if Trump should be a television president, I think he's got to talk directly to the American people. I think you have to have this transition team that is working on, eliminating the corruption within government, some of the waste and spending, exposing the quote unquote deep state, exposing people in Congress that are corrupt, declassifying certain documents. So I think you've got to do that and audit all these federal institutions, even the military, because there's too many billions of dollars that go missing from the federal government's budget every year. That's ridiculous. That money is essentially being stolen from the American people because we have no idea where it's going and what it's being used for. And maybe some of those things could be used for some of the programs that would help Americans. You know what? Because I'm a conservative. I don't necessarily like certain programs or social programs, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? If you're telling me that I can spend money on a war and that I don't care about in Ukraine, or foreign aid with countries that hate us, or insert billions of dollars of foreign aid that are going to some country for some bullshit here, when I could spend that money in the U.S. and the American people, getting them jobs, getting them better access to healthcare, getting them higher wages, fixing our crumbling infrastructure here, because we've got, it seems like every week we're hearing about a dam that's bursting, some sort of train derailment or anything like this. We're a superpower. We need to act like it. Our military's gone DEI, and we've had ships in the Navy crashing into other ships. We've got planes falling out of the sky. We've got all these things that are falling apart and deteriorating, yet we are sending our money away from America and improving America, from building a wall, from doing all these things for the American people. Because at least if you're going to take the money away from me, at least use it for me, right? I don't like my money being taken away. I don't like taxes. But if you're going to take it away from me, then you sure as hell better use it for me and using it than these other people. Or just don't take it away at all. That's even better. But the fact of the matter is, we need to audit the federal government and see where this money is going. And I think that that's what Trump needs to do in this 4 years that he's got. Audit the federal government expose the quote unquote deep state, the bureaucratic state, whatever you want to call it, and address the American people every time that you do it. Every week. Either Trump needs to do it, maybe Trump does something every week, and then you send Vivek and JD out there to do it. And I think that's what you got to do. I think that's where you go with all of this. And that's how you that's how you educate the American people, because a big problem that we have now is that a lot of the American people don't believe or understand how the government is supposed to function. They don't understand that we have a constitution, that we can pass a lot of these things. We can pass amendments to the constitution. We can literally change things. They're just angry when, oh, well, they got rid of they got rid of abortion, or they got rid of this and they got rid of that, or they added this and they added that. I was like, well, we can add amendments. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this arbitrary decision by the courts or by the executive branch. The ATF is not supposed to be able to ban bump stocks or things like that any more than the EPA is supposed to ban fossil fuel cars. That's not how any of this is supposed to work. This is all supposed to go through Congress. Congress is supposed to pass laws or amendments to the Constitution. They get ratified, and then that's it. That is how this is all working now. Some of this may be affected by the Chevron deference decision, which is another thing that I didn't get to talk about since I haven't been on the air for more than a month here, but that may make a lot of differences too. We don't know what the repercussions of the Chevron deference decision in the Supreme Court are going to be, and it may solve a lot of the issues that we have with the bureaucratic state. But as long as the statists and the authoritarians are in power and they want to be there, that's not going to happen. So I didn't really get to talking too much about the convention, but I think this is a good place to end it now. We made it to 2 hours. We had like 16 or 17 people watching. That's awesome. You guys are great. Thank you so much for coming back on such a short notice, especially on this new channel. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when we do more, whether it's at the normal time or we do some shows during the week as well, maybe a little bit shorter than the 2 hours if we do them more often. But stay tuned. I will for sure be back this Thursday with the old man, with my younger brother, Commander N. Thank you, Comic Misconceptions. You're a real one. Thanks to Carla, the mod extraordinaire, and my ranter extraordinaire. She's incredible. The old man for always pushing me to do the rants. The old man is amazing. You guys love him too. We got to convince the old man to start getting on... Thank you, Cerberus, playing it loud in a restaurant. Well, that's pretty easy, man, because you know me. If you guys have met me in person, you guys know I have no problem being loud. I don't need a microphone or anything like that. I have to restrain myself from deafening people around me because I'm Puerto Rican. I'm pretty loud. Everybody must think that I'm angry and yelling at the world, but I'm not. I'm a pretty happy guy. I got good things going on. So the world may be falling apart, but remember, pray every day for this world, for this country, for your families, for people in need. Pray for yourself. Have faith. Be positive. Be ready to accept people here. There's going to be a lot of people that are very confused, that don't know what's going on, that are going to feel lost with everything that they've seen. Have empathy and have understanding that as more people try to join the cause of freedom, a lot of them are not going to understand things. We have to educate them, treat them, almost like kindergartners that are being educated for the first time, because a lot of people have been exposed to lies that they've never realized, and they're going to be in shock. They're going to be in shock. They're not going to understand these things, but they're going to be receptive to the message, and we need to have empathy. Can't call people like, oh, well, I can't believe you didn't see this for years. You're an idiot. Can't do that. We can't take that approach. We want people to come into the fold. We want them to believe in the cause of freedom, in the Constitution, all of those things, and we have to be receptive. Now, obviously, if people keep now, but at this point, of course, we're also not going to be weak. We have to be tough. We can't let anyone crush us. We can't be afraid to say what we believe in, who we're going to vote for. Can't be afraid of your faith, your beliefs, your morality, and what you stand for. Can't be afraid of any of those things. So, stand strong, stand true. We're in this together, and go out and vote, because we're going to have to, because you'll see that this will be a speed bump for the DNC. They're going to do everything they can to try to get this. And there are a lot of people that were looking for an excuse to not vote for either Biden or Trump. So they will take Kamala no matter what. So this has to be the message. We need to get you to Timcast numbers, Rolo. Maybe one day. That'd be great. I love Tim. He's fantastic. We'll work on it. Maybe this year we can do it. So spread the word. Let everyone know that Rolo is back, that the rants are here. We're going to continue them. Again, we'll see what the regular schedule is. We'll probably stick with the normal show on Sundays, but I may do a couple of shows during the week that'll be shorter, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of things to talk about. We didn't even get to any of the Second Amendment stuff here, or talking about how the Secret Service is still using Glocks with iron sights when everybody and their mom has red dot optics on their pistols. I got pistols with red dots, and I'm just some peon. So come on, man. We got a lot to talk about. There are more than 100 days until the election. Anything can happen at that point. Then we've got the lame duck period after that until the inauguration. So this party is just getting started, but let not your hearts be troubled. We will get through this with faith and integrity. God bless all of you. Thank you so much for watching tonight. God bless America. And we will catch you on the next Rolo's Rants.